Oh, the bowl was too thin. Oh, where'd it go? Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today? Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review, where I take glazes off the shelf and I test them for you before they get into your beautiful little hands. Today's video is a bit of a strange one because in today's video, we are retesting Coastal Blue from the Clayscapes company. For quite some time, Coastal Blue has been a fan favorite of the Clayscapes company as well as the people who buy it, but more recently they have redeveloped the glaze since January of 2025. And if you remember the last episode where we tested their Cinnabar glaze, they also sent us the newest version of this glaze. That's right, this is technically a new formula, which means we will be testing it all over again. I was gonna mix it up in front of you guys, but I already mixed it up and have been testing it myself because I just couldn't wait. So, pretend there's beautiful footage of me mixing glazes. Okay, click the like button, now we got to this part. Let's talk about what we're gonna test before we actively test them. This here is a white stoneware clay body. I'm pretty sure this is just bead mixed with grog that we have here. It's a very, very thin bowl. I mean, hold on, let's weigh it real quick. Let's weigh it. I just wanna see. Hop up out the bed, turn the scale on, put it on the gram scale. Weighs 132 grams. We didn't need to do that whatsoever. I kind of just wanted to see how much my bowls weigh. We're gonna be testing them on a stoneware white bowl. We're also gonna be testing them on our standard red clay body. Now this is a mixture clay. It's still a brown/red clay body, but I do wanna say that this is a recycled clay body, so it might be a little bit lighter than the red velvet that you're used to on the channel, which essentially turns very, very dark red from the IMCO company. This over here is a Mocha Diffusion recycled clay body test that we're doing here. And I'm mainly doing it on this just in case you can see through it. I do know for a fact, because I've been working with this glaze for quite some time, that it is a translucent glaze and usually crazes. And because of that, I know that these will probably show through, I just don't know in what form. So we're gonna see how well we can see these Mocha diffusion marks through the actual glaze. And our last tester here is a dragon fruit clay body. These little stripes here are just manganese dioxide mixed in with slip, but it is a dragon fruit clay body, and you can very easily tell that by looking at the little blue specks on the bottom. And because this is technically a handmade glaze, we do need to test the specific gravity, which is the appropriate thing to do whenever you're testing and mixing a glaze. Let's get 100 mils. I could divide by 50, but I am ashamed to pull out the calculator on camera. 1.32 specific gravity. Technically, this glaze should be at 1.4, but as long as our numbers stay consistent throughout the whole thing, we should be fine. So we're gonna test this at 1.32. By the way, before we start this glaze review, I would like to let you guys know that I do have someone helping me with the channel now after 1,000 years of doing it by myself in the form of an editor. Everyone say hello to my editor. You might notice that I have chosen a furry as my editor. I didn't choose that on purpose. That was up to God. Do a good old 1, 2, 3. Pull it out. Oh, the bowl was too thin. Oh, where'd it go? Oh my God, it exploded in my hands. On Jod? On Jod that happened on camera right now? After all that flexing I did about my bowl is so thin, Where did it go? Where did it go? Editor, can I get a slow-mo on that, please? Like right now, so that I can know where the bowl went? Oh my Lord. Oh, the bowl was too thin. Oh. Listen, you guys think I'm kidding, but I really lost it. Where'd it go? It went to the back rooms. I'm not even joking. I'm looking, this is not a skit. I cannot find it. It can't be back there. It can't be back there because the bowl was bigger than this crack. So it can't be back there. I'm just gonna continue with... Really? Hey guys, I found the bowl. Is there any more shards down there? Did I get a clean break? I can hear it. I can hear it down there with my wolf hearing that I have. Give me this. Look at that. See that? Look. I've never been so embarrassed. We're leaving this in, I think. You know what? It's up to the editor, actually. And we're just going to pretend that never happened. You know I always harp on specific gravity and the ratio in between how much water is in your glaze versus how much minerals, because it does make a very large difference. In fact, the viscosity of your glaze and the specific gravity of your glazes matter a lot in conjunction, and they can turn a glaze from like this to this. This is a glaze I pulled out of my kiln earlier, and this is 1.3 specific gravity with a 3-second dip, and this is 1.4 specific gravity with a 3-second dip. And for anyone who doesn't know what specific gravity is, it's really just the ratio of how much mineral you have in comparison to the water. That's for our cases, that's really what it is, right? And so by applying a 3-second dip with lower specific gravity, you're technically absorbing more water into your piece than you are minerals, and the minerals are the thing that make the glaze. When you have specific gravity set in your glaze as a maintenance number, you should write it on the bucket. Coastal Blue, Cone 6, oxidation, 1.3 specific gravity. Yes, it looks like chicken scratch, but a lot of these glazes will evaporate the water out of them and separate over time, and when that water separates, it ends up reducing the amount of water in the glaze. Also, whenever you dip a bisque pot into a bucket of glaze, it absorbs the water and leaves the glaze minerals behind. That's what glaze is. So technically speaking, you're reducing the amount of water every time you use the glaze. So over the course of about 5 or 6 months, you can very easily, especially when it's hot outside, find that your specific gravity will naturally go up just from using it, not taking the water out yourself, just naturally go up. You'll go from 1.3 to 1.4 to like 1.45 specific gravity over the course of, let's say, maybe a year. And because of that, I think it's really good to keep this number, this maintenance number around, so you know how much water is needed in your glaze in order to get the proper results you want. This is something that the Ceramics Material Workshop taught me, and I have been doing the tests, and they're coming out pretty conclusive, guys. I'm only going on this little spiel because so many people are like, how much water do you put in the glaze? It really doesn't matter how much water I put in the glaze after about 4 months. After 4 months, this amount of water is going to change. The real question is there a number that you can follow to tell you how much water needs to be in the glaze at all times in order for it to work for the longevity of your glazes? That's what matters. That's the reason why I don't usually give you the number of how many milliliters or how many gallons of water to put in the glaze. Does it work initially? Yes. Will it work over time? No. You need a specific gravity number. Okay, Dad's done lecturing you. Go back to clicking the like button now. So I know from previous experience with this glaze and testing it before that this is a runny glaze. The trouble with this glaze is that it looks more blue and it looks tastier when it's runny. So when you apply an extra helping of it, double dip it, things of that nature, it usually gets more of that blue color in Coastal Blue. And mind you, the glaze is called Coastal Blue, but too many people like to concentrate on that blue part of Coastal Blue, but really you're supposed to imagine like a sandy beach with clear blue water. And that's how the glaze comes out. It comes out slightly blue, but majoritively tan when you properly apply it. But most people don't want the tan part. Most people just want the blue part. So you have to apply it rather thick. Trouble is, it's a runny glaze, and we know this from experience. Here is one of the pots that I've already sold from my website, earthnationceramics.com, where I put an extra delicious helping on the very top. Do you see how much that ran? It runs like a mother. But do you see that blue? Ooh, that blue. Everybody wants this blue. So it's one of these glazes that make an excellent drippy glaze if you just put on an extra helping of it. Right here, I've left a little bit of space at the bottom to let it run. But I only did that because we put on an extra helping of this glaze here. So we're gonna try a little combo on top of an oil spot glaze just to see if it works out. Does this even fit in here? Question mark?
Nope.
It barely doesn't fit in there. I hate that. Can I cheese it? Can I do this? That won't work, they said. You can't just put it in bigger bucket and have it work. Look who's laughing now, Dad. I'm kidding. I don't have a dad. Actually, before I put this away, this is a great example of the specific gravity thing I was talking about. I have a double-walled sealed container here. I have a lip on the inside and on the outside. But that's because you can clearly see the water is starting to kind of evaporate up to the top of the lid. And this is one of my containers that I got from a food industry place. Because of it, it makes sure it's like airtight and sealed. You better believe your little Home Depot and Lowe's buckets aren't like this efficient with sealing things. I don't care if you have those 4 little corners that say they seal it all the way. They don't. You are going to lose water over time. Specific gravity is a way better measurement than any amount of please just tell me what water to put in there. Now I am very familiar with this glaze, and because of it you can see I'm using lots of things that have glaze lines on them, something that would help stop the glaze from running over onto the foot. So a lot of the pieces that I'm using like this have a big solid line and a foot right underneath it where I've cleaned it off, because this glaze does run. So I have one tester here with a glaze line. However, I think it'd be foolhardy of us to not test it in another way. So we're gonna dip the inside here. Pour it on out. And we're going to oversaturate the very top, and I want you to remember where the glaze line is for this portion right here before it runs, because it might just come out like our previous test that we did before. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, our initial, that was a 4-second dip. Let's see if we can get back in there once it dries and give it another 4-second dip so we can see how far it runs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that is officially a double coat totaling in an 8-second dip. Okay, and as we usually do, let's talk about what we're putting in the kiln before it actively goes in. This here is a B-Mix of Grog bowl with a couple of underglaze transfers on it. I used it for an underglaze video and just never finished the job, so I decided to use it as a tester. I do think you will be able to see the underglaze through the actual overglaze when it's done, because Coastal Blue, even in its reformulated form, is a very see-through and semi-transparent, it's actually pretty transparent glaze when it's fully fired. I have a good relationship with this glaze. So here is your white B-Mix with Grog test style. This here is a porcelain white, and it is a reclaimed porcelain clay white test style, but it's mixed in with a little bit of a mason stain. It's still porcelain. The only difference is I like to mix my porcelain in with mason stains to make different colors of clay sometimes. So usually comes out like this, but this is just a dark porcelain. The real difference is that this is something that we use for mocha diffusion. So we're gonna see if we can see the mocha diffusion trail marks of manganese dioxide that we actually did on a previous YouTube video, which I will link down below if you haven't seen my video on how to do mocha diffusion. This here is a dragon fruit clay body with Coastal Blue from Clayscapes on it. This is just a 3-second dip, much like these two over here, and done. The only difference is that this is a dragon fruit clay body. It's a really translucent glaze. I'm kind of hoping that you'll be able to see the little dragon fruit specks through, but we'll find out. This one here is a little special in that the entire thing is a red or light brown clay body, but it is mixed in with Coastal Blue and my oil spot glaze, or one of them, at the very top here. I did leave a lot of space at the bottom, and I'm most likely going to go over all of these again and wipe them down a little bit more on the bottom foot, mainly because I know for sure that this is a relatively runny glaze, but it looks best when it's runny. So keep that in mind as you play with this at home. I don't want your stuff dripping onto shelves unless you have those fancy schmancy shelves. Okay, these are all of our tests. We're putting all of these in at cone 6 oxidation. The high majority of them, especially these ones, were dipped for a total of 3 seconds at 1.3 specific gravity. And with that being said, let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. This is our white porcelain base test with the new version of Coastal Blue. Beautiful. I actually kind of regret using this on a tester bowl because it's like, well, I mean, it's a test and there's no partner to go with it. Usually I sell my stuff on my website, earthnationceramics.com, in sets. So if you buy a bowl, you will get 2 bowls generally, and that's why the price is near like 50 to 60 bucks. But this can, because it doesn't go with anything. You know, a bit of a spoiler here, it's really interesting because I know that this glaze needs to be put on relatively thick at the correct specific gravity in order to work. And it also, by the way, I did this just to make sure. I also put a cone 6 cone watcher in there just to make sure I'm getting the right amount of heat for this thing to develop. And there it is. There's the proof that I reached the cone 6 temperature. So I didn't go to cone 5 in a bit. I didn't go to a low cone 6. I went to a real cone 6. But in my experience, this stuff usually didn't run a bit for me. The glaze line is exactly where I left it, exactly where it should be. When I trim, I usually put a tiny little moat right here, and you can probably see it to make sure that glaze gets caught in there before it has a chance to reach the foot. That's just a functional thing that I do. And, you know, hand over hand, every single one of these tests came out just like this. This one here is Coastal Blue on a dragon fruit clay body. Now, one of the interesting things, much like the bowl you just saw, is that you can technically see through Coastal Blue. And because of that, you can see all of the delicious little black marks I had on there from previous mocha diffusion experiments, as well as the dragon fruit specks right through the clay body. You know, and I'm gonna say it again, it didn't run. Didn't run whatsoever. Granted, I do know that I put glaze lines on my stuff to prevent stuff from running, but usually when I do that, it runs anyway, and it didn't do it this time, even though I reached a pretty good cone 6. Now, something that you will notice about this glaze is if you don't put it on thick, it won't turn blue. This is no more apparent than on the bottom, where I only put like 2 layers of the glaze, and it turned this type of more coastal than blue color right here. But if you look on the outside, where I gave it its fair due, you can see that after it turned this type of coastal color, it then turned blue. And on the spots where it dripped down into thickness and it ended up being a bit thicker, you can truly see where it turned an immaculate blue versus this type of coastal purplish blue here. That's what I mean about this glaze. It truly does need to be a little bit thick, and it does need to be double dipped sometime, much like our next test style. You remember this one? This one is the one that we double dipped, assuming that it would drip, and we left lots of space up here. Remember I told you to mark down how many inches were at the top here? Well, it looks like it kind of did that for us, because you can clearly see the glaze line that went down from an inch from the very top, and you can see that it made these beautiful drips right here. This is on a dragon fruit clay body, and it's just Coastal Blue layered very heavily on top. I feel so bad using some of these things as testers because I usually pick out things that are relatively failures when I throw in order to test on them. So my maker's mark didn't survive the process. I just didn't score it and slip it enough. But now I feel bad because like this It's actually a pretty good cup. Keep in mind this glaze is kind of a triple threat in that it is number one clear, it supplies you with the color brown, and it is a phase separation glaze at the same time. So when you put it on thick enough, it does turn this type of purple going on to blue here. You're essentially getting 3 different colors and a pseudo translucent glaze at the same time. But you do need to treat it properly. You can't just dip it for 2 seconds, take it out and be like, ah, it turned brown. Of course it turned brown. You didn't do it right. Our last tester and our most interesting one is Coastal Blue on a brown mixed clay body, and it turned out fantastic. Again, this is another one that I feel bad about because I didn't glaze all the way down to the bottom, assuming that it would run, especially since we put it on another glaze. But it ran just enough to make these beautiful drips that people often like. And on top of that, and I know someone's gonna fight me on this down in the comments below, but this glaze works fantastic on a red or darker brown clay body. In fact, I would use this on everything but a white or porcelain clay body. And I do know that everyone really seems to like this color right here. They want this type of opalescent, purplish, almost Lynette's opal type glaze. But I'm telling you, the difference in between this and this is massive. This color isn't seen a lot in the glaze world. And you know what? I think it's just because y'all are afraid to use some brown clay body once in a while. Oh my God, it's so messy. It's not messy. Using brown clay doesn't make you a messier thrower. It's just easier to see the mess. You're just as messy with brown clay as you are with white clay. And on top of that, this is a mixed clay body. It's a mixed recycled clay body. So you can kind of see through it, being as it's a bit translucent, to where you can see those beautiful marbleizations right behind the glaze. Man, look at this layer on the bottom right here. Now this was our combination because I thought I was being slick. I thought for some reason the mocha diffusion I did earlier on this cup would show up if I combine this glaze with Coastal Blue. But what I'm really, really excited about is the fact that Coastal Blue, all by itself, without combining with this glaze, turned an immaculate blue on some darker clay body right here. And this is, I mean, honestly, I'm just gonna start using Coastal Blue with black clay bodies and brown clay bodies from this point on, to really reassure that I'm getting that good blue out of it. Because this isn't the translucent that you saw earlier on the white clay body, where it's kind of like translucent pink here and some brown here and some blue here and some pink here. This is just delicious blue. Oh, but no, you don't want to work with black and brown clay bodies because they're dirty. But just look at the difference in between these three, going from brown to black clay. Here's our white here, our white porcelain, and this is the Coastal Blue that everybody kind of expects right here. And then we look at our brown mixed clay bodies, some white, some brown. You can see right here, it turns a bit darker purple. The black one though came out truly blue. Almost a better version of floating blue, I would say. I'd take this over floating blue any day if I'm being honest with you. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today for the second review of the new formula of Coastal Blue. You know, I didn't go through the mixing process, but I do want to take a bit to say I think it's important to test your glazes specific gravity. I know there's way more barometers than specific gravity when it comes to glazes. There's application, there's heat, there's specific gravity, there's viscosity. I understand all that. But the easiest one that you can do is get yourself a gram scale, test the specific gravity, and it'll make glazes that never worked for you before start magically working all of a sudden. I am aware that everyone kind of just wants to look at the instructions and see that you ought to put a certain amount of water in a glaze in order for it to operate the way it ought to operate. But unfortunately, every time you take a piece and you dip it in your glaze, a certain amount of water is soaked up into your bisque, which means your glaze is technically losing water. Over time, because of water evaporating out of your glaze and because of it getting soaked into the bisque work that you're glazing it with, you're gonna lose water, and the amount of water to glaze ratio gets messed up over the course of like 5 or 6 months. Okay, I know, Dad's done yelling at you. Thank you for joining me for today's video. Good luck on your next art project. Remember to click all those YouTube buttons, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.